Hey, and welcome back. So I've been getting some questions about the build that I've been recording with lately. People want to know, is there a reason I have War Spec, Void Trained, no healing, no melee D, like is that actually better? No. Purely for challenge runs and to prove the point that all this stuff can be done with kind of an insane build. If you watch my 30 legendary quests without gear video, you know that you can take that to an extreme for sure. So I'd like to highlight some actually good builds and explain my logic, so let's hop into the character planner. First off, for Void Mage, this is a pretty standard, very strong setup. It does require you being max level and having all the optional skill credits, but before that point, you can either drop life or healing to trained. Depends on what you want to prioritize, like speed or survivability, right? And surviving really is the meta. Speed isn't rewarded in AC except for, being faster. So why would I put Void in like my top spot to start the video? It's great for the entire game. You can go 100 endurance self to hit the breakpoints faster for summoning. You have a way easier time with gear than everybody because you only need one element. And they're also the best character in group situations because of their damage amplification. So overall, for all those reasons, for like a playthrough quote unquote of AC, I think this is the best character. As far as your endgame set, Adept Wise for spellcraft and speed, Defender Adept or Defender Wise for defense. And then another viable and really powerful route to take this is Void Trained. I have my alt Via set up this way to be like a debuff specialist. And so here you could go creature and life with spec healing. Dropping healing to trained and taking trained missile is an option to be super versatile. Or you can give up one of the magic spec to be spec melee D and be a lot harder to kill. So all really good options, hard to go wrong with Void. Late game, recommend going damage rating for your Luminous Seer because that affects your DOTs. Next we got the classic ATW, I call this the double spec archer. You have both creature and life at max spellcraft. You get dirty fighting for some extra debuff to your summons, and lockpick for VR and to get through some content quicker. Missile's good for the whole game, maybe like not as smooth as Void, but endgame this build's pretty amazing because you have spec creature to debuff, you have life to 2-gack, you have missile hitting really hard, and you get dirty fighting and you get lockpick. Yeah, you pretty much win the endgame. For set, either still Adept Wise, Defender Adept, or Dex or Wise as secondary to Defender would be my top picks. If you're looking to go faster on content, you want to boost Spellcraft for the most part. The reason being the fastest way to play on most of the endgame content is debuffing for your summons, and getting resisted and having to cast again is really slow. So from that perspective, you could argue that Adept Wise is the #1 set for every single build. Defender is also really good. Huge melee D magic D bonus and 100% stam regen. Brings us to my next pick, the spec magic D archer. So you for sure want defender set on this. We get dirty fighting spec as an upgrade. Having the range to actively slide and dodge magic on archer to begin with, and then pairing that with spec magic D is really strong. I like it a lot better than say on Finesse, who doesn't have that range advantage. Then you can mess around with dropping missile to trained, but I find for like a dedicated archer, both the damage from the wield and having to set your accuracy bar higher and then sometimes still missing at full accuracy with trained is like a lot to give up. Next we got Big Two-Hander. I think this is a pretty quality questing build. Spec Dirty Fighting pairs naturally with Two-Hander because of the double hit. Lens and Cleave with the Rend is really powerful on things where you need to clear. Then with Spec Creature you can initiate with the Magic Yield and debuff bosses, which is the best way to play it for a lot of them. For set, again, Adept Wise is a valid choice. Defender Adept or Wise secondary is good. Alright, here's a hot take. I think Hardy is pretty overrated. If you're looking for the Hardy type effect, Dedication does that just better in pretty much every way. You're getting 15 strength, which is only 5 less than Hardy. You're getting 15 endurance. You're getting attack skill, you're getting spellcraft, you're getting melee D and magic D, and you're getting a bonus to literally all of your skills. And Dedication shines on strength in particular because the other builds don't meaningfully use the strength stat. Then you can swap it up and go trained. This is actually optimal for questing. Just velvet up your weapons so you're not missing. Because the amount of content where you actually have to cleave on 2-hand to clear things, you can count on 1 hand. Spellcraft is faster as usual, so going like a double spec 2-hander, you can do it this way. And you can do this with variations of all the strength builds. Light, heavy, Edlattle. Edlattle is actually really good to pair with summons. Finesse is actually pretty solid, but for me, I'd say the mileage you get out of it depends on how much like defense you need, which isn't really a concern for me. A good use for them is VR, wall killing, but outside of that, I'd mostly rather play a 2-hander. They have a lot to like though. Higher melee D, better spellcraft. I touched on this earlier, but all melees are at a pretty significant inherent disadvantage on difficult content. You can only deal damage while point blank and stationary momentarily, which opens you up to being swarmed from all sides and getting blasted by magic. There's sometimes this like janky charging animation to get to the target you want, which can lock you in place for longer and let you take even more damage. So I'm not saying it's not good, these are just things you have to consider beyond like the on paper stats, you know? But yeah, Finesse is low credit cost, so they can do a similar double spec thing. They can go Magic D. The thing I wouldn't recommend is Melee D spec, because you can get up to a 64% mod in your offhand, which makes that kind of unnecessary. For set, Adept Wise or Defender Primary, both valid choices. Defender doubles down on the things that Finesse does well, so it's a pretty good option. Finally, War Mage. Infamous for being bad in the endgame, honestly not that bad because you do have max spellcraft. With the endgame being such a debuff for summons heavy game, just having that alone is pretty strong. I go creature spec because a lot of times you need the magic yield to land your offense. Or alternatively, you go war train, and I think this is honestly the better choice because the credit cost doesn't really justify the damage on war. Going train frees up credits for things like double spec or spec melee D, which are just going to have more value on most of the content. And the same set options as void. Anyway, that's it for the quick guide. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm also open to requests or ideas on videos. But anyway, you should now be equipped to go forth and conquer in the endgame. I appreciate you watching, have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one.